aren't we? I think it's going to be a right romp. I mean, the thing is, you've both been top of your comedy tree, but it's true that when you were young, one of you wanted to be a dictator and one of you wanted to be a stripper. Now, how can we work out which was which? Sarah, dictator?
I just thought stripping was nice lady dancing. I was good at dancing.
When did you go off the idea?
Well, you can't do like GCSE stripping, so then I realised it's obviously not a proper... It's not for me. It's not just dancing.
Yeah, and this whole dictatorship.
Yes, well, when I was a kid, I used to draw out my ideas, and I had the Republic of Saylovia, which was... I used to do the flag, and it had me as a president, and... yeah, I used to draw all the buildings and everything. Yeah? But because both my parents were in the Communist Party, so...
yeah, we're going to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, the idea of dictatorship came easy to me! Be funny! Oh, yes!
Listen,
cook food!
Now we were having a chat earlier on, and Zoe said that you two have actually met before, but really that's where the conversation ended, wasn't it, Zoe?
In a former life. Which I apparently pretended to remember when you first told me about this.
Yeah.
It was the Big Breakfast.
Yeah, I was on the Big Breakfast before I started doing stand-up and stuff. I was a part of this kind of youth TV programme where we had to make up a story about having been sort of hypnotised and that it's gone wrong. And we made up the story and we were supposed to get it in, like, the local papers, and we got it in all the tabloids, and it went a bit mad because we were just really good at lying, I guess. And then the Big Breakfast said, "Do you want to come on and come clean?" And we came on and I was interviewed by you. And then the next time I saw you on It Takes Time...
I suppose you're probably gathering yourself, preparing yourself to go on stage. Do you have pre-night rituals? Do you get really nervous still?
I think it's healthy to be nervous because I think it means that you care, but I still have little things that I do. I have to have, like, 74 last wees and all that sort of stuff.
Just the 74?
Yeah. But also I have to pick... I take 2 dresses and I pick whichever one is the least creased because I don't iron. So I hang them both up and whichever's the least creased, I'll have that. And then I do eat quite close to going on stage.
Oh, I can't come on the one show without having a soup.
Soup.
Yeah, I can't.
I used to be like that years when I first started. I don't know if you like this. Like 5 hours before every show, I couldn't eat anything except I was so nervous. And now I can be like picking it out of my teeth while my nails.
Yes.
It's that sandwich platter that they leave in your room.
Well, listen,
it's rude to ignore, isn't it?
Exactly, you've got to eat it.
Yeah. Now we've got an adorable photo of the inspiration behind the new tour, which is called Outsider. Yes. Here he is, this little chap.
Oh,
there you go.
There he is.
Now introduce him to us.
He's called Commander Tuvok because all of our pets have ranks. Chief Brody, Lieutenant Ripley and Commander Tuvok. We are officially the best people in the world at naming animals. He's adorable. It's not... Yeah, the show's not just about him, but is because he's made me go outside, I think. Because I kind of... Outside was just the bit between the car and the house, or the bit between the car and the venue. But now I actually, like, walk around on grass and stuff.
Do you own walking shoes? Have you got a lot of Teflon yet?
I've got quite heavy trainers, but I haven't quite gone... I wear wellies quite a lot. I like what... Because I feel like I can... Although I realised I was stepping over puddles in my wellies and I thought, this is not right. I've got to walk through them.
Yeah, and it's real fun.
It is really fun, but he needs emptying a lot, so we've got to take him out a lot.
Yeah. Okay,
got to empty a dog.
At random hours, no doubt, because of your schedule, isn't it?
He's got a comic sort of body clock now, so his last wees are sort of 2 in the morning, but then he sleeps in till 11. He's smashing. Sleeps right through. He sleeps right through.
See, much easier than a baby. I have to say.
Totally, and cuter. Sorry.
Do you miss touring, Alexi? And do you? I mean, you do different tours now.
Yeah, they're different tours, really. So, you know, because I've been an author the last few years, I do mostly literary festivals, and that's great because you're not going to get somebody drunk and kind of screaming at you at the Cheltenham Book Festival. You know, it's kind of like, oh, Salman Rushdie's in again. You know, what about Midnight Children? So,
is it right though, Alexi, that your wife used to be your bouncer when things like that did happen?
She was chief of security. What we realised fairly, because we were, you know. We were talking to Sarah before about how I invented everything and she owes me money. And, but we were doing everything for the first time and security was one of those things. And we realised very soon that you couldn't send a bouncer in. If somebody was being obstreperous, you couldn't haul them out. But what Linda realised was that they would always need to go to the toilet because they were drunk and then she just wouldn't let them back in.
That is brilliant.
So they were kept trapped in the toilet? Or the outside?
Yeah, Linda would go in the toilet. That's really what had happened. Now she's
pile of people in the toilets.
Yeah, but they were enjoying themselves in their own way, you know.
Smashing time.
And your fans, I mean, do they have been to your shows? And people do get quite fruity and shout things out, don't you? You do encourage it, don't you?
Well, yeah, but it's certain sections. It's not all the time. So if I ask a question, I want them to join in. And we do have a question on this one where I ask them what's the best thing they've seen in nature. And they shout out various suggestions, and it's quite fun. Yeah, but not all the time. They don't shout out all the time, because they're hopefully just listening to the show and they're not drunk, like you say. But Fridays can sometimes be a bit more confident.
Yes, bold.
Good
like it.
Bold.
They've got these. Do you remember any of the things they shouted out about nature?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we've had some really good ones, some quite rude ones that I couldn't possibly tell you. But mostly people just are bragging that they've been on holiday somewhere posh. That's people do that a lot. But then somebody once said in London, actually, somebody said that they'd seen a badger eating a kebab. That's quite nice, isn't it? It's quite
What
nice.
a fine
Wasn't
taste
like in
badgers
the shop,
have.
in the queue. You know, it wasn't like that. It was just out in the street. It wasn't
Chomping
like,
on it as
no
it
salads,
twisted
please. Yeah.
Well, listen, Sarah's Outsider tour travels around the country until September.
Yeah, end of September, yeah.
They're brilliant. Alexi was, of course, at the,
He would,
to his
indeed.
collection.
Now, Alexi, interestingly, during that, you said you hated most things, but you didn't mind the frost report.
No, I thought it was... No, I gave it my seal of approval, even though I was only probably 9 at the time.
Well.
But I find this too... Yeah, I mean, it was... I realised, I think, this was before it was a comic, but it was an interesting crossover because there was Ronnie Barker, but there was also all those Oxbridge, all that Footlights crowd, and there was a really interesting chemistry, I think, between them. You know?
Sure, yeah. And when Thatcher came to power, you were at the mic here at the very first Comedy Store.
Yes.
I mean, and really, you know, we were saying earlier on that you invented this kind of alternative comedy. Did it feel at the time like what you were doing was groundbreaking?
It did, you know.
It
Partly,
did,
in all fairness, we were lucky because there was this terrible vacuum that there was all these working men's club comics, and that's all there was really, doing jokes about the mother-in-law and Pakistani. So it was, you know, there was just this massive hole that we could fill. And so you said anything the least bit intelligent and people would laugh their heads off, really. I think we got away with some rubbish, really. But just because, you know, you'd say, you know, habitat, and they go, ah! Just because you weren't talking about the wife's mother. And so... But also politically, that it was such a, you know, powerful time that Thatcher was this huge... I mean, the Comedy Store and Thatcher both came to power in the same month, as it were. And obviously, Thatcher was this huge ogre, and so, you know, and half the country loved her and half the country hated her. And so it was just... you know, it's just a massive opportunity to lay into it, really.
And the start of that for you was your wife, Linda, seeing a tiny little advert in a private eye, asking for an MC, which I guess kind of changed the course of your life, really.
It did completely, yeah, and I wouldn't have noticed it. Linda saw it, and, yeah, I just went along and auditioned, and I mean, people won't understand now because comedy's such a huge business. There was no there were no comedy clubs in Britain, and the people that they'd had auditioning there. When I went in, like it says in, you know, Thatcher Stole My Trousers. I mean, I went in there, and the act they were auditioning was a woman, and she had all like irons and stuff, like. Kitchen utensils hanging off her, and she was singing "I'm only a bird in a gilded cage." And she wasn't the worst. She wasn't anywhere near the worst person that they were auditioning. So when I turned up and I was kind of halfway sane, they were so relieved. And also, because it started at midnight, it was in a strip club, and it was just wild. And so I just used... you know, just force of personality and intimidation to, you know, to just keep people in line. It was my proud boast that all the time I was at the Comedy Store, the police were never called.
Is that true? An accolade indeed.
Also, I mean, lots of comedians came through there, and we'll talk about some of your great friends afterwards. One of whom, Robin Williams, turns up. He's been filming Robert Altman's Popeye. You knew who he was because you'd seen Mork and Mindy, but a lot of people might not have known who he was at that point.
That's right, and I just always think that he must have asked a particularly hip taxi driver, because most taxi drivers, he said to the taxi driver, take me to a comedy club, thinking, you know, London was like San Francisco or something. And most taxi drivers would have taken him to the Circus Tavern Purfleet, you know, and he'd have been on with, like, Jiminy Cricket and Jim Davis and go, yeah, my mother in all the Pakistan, he goes into it. You know, and actually Robin would have died there. Luckily, the cabbie took him to the Comedy Store, and he went on, you know, that night, and he did like 45 minutes. And like I say in the book, it's like being pushed down the stairs laughing. It was the most extraordinary experience.
Have you been, Sarah? I mean, do you go up on stage? Do you feel attracted to that kind of environment as well with your stand-up still?
Oh, yeah. Well, I try all of my... Before it goes on tour, I try all of my stuff out at sort of smaller gigs, and because you have to, because you can't just take your own word for it that it's hilarious, because then everything I ever say I think is hilarious.
Right.
I have to try it out on audiences, and they get to decide. So I love all that sort of stuff, and I played the Comedy Store a few times when I was on the circuit, and absolutely loved it. It's it was a brilliant place, and you're always surrounded by like awesome comics, and it always made you raise your game.
Okay. And obviously, through the Comedy Club came Aid Edmondson, Rick Mail, Nigel Blake. You all went on to do one of my favourite television shows that my dad used to let me stay up late and watch when my mum was at Keep Fit. But I used to have to go to bed just at 9:25 before it finished. The Young Ones, absolutely brilliant. And you played the Bolofsky.
The Bolofsky family, theoretically.
What was the guy with the really long name? It's my favourite.
Oh God, that was the...
That's putting you on the spot.
Oh
now.
yeah.
When I just want to... It's a bit of my stand-up when I talk about being called Alexi in being called Alexi in 1950s Liverpool. When everybody was called like Steve, and I was called like Alexi again because my parents were communists. Alexi, Siege of Stalingrad. Glorious 5-year plan, Moscow Dynamo.
Still got it. Still got it. There you go.
Absolutely amazing. We absolutely loved it. You must have been such an incredible family, such great comedians.
We were incredibly close. I mean, we went on holiday together and stuff. We went on a skiing holiday, which was hilarious in itself. And we were great friends, and we made each other. We made each other laugh, and that was the real joy of it, really. Just being on the tour bus or being backstage. They were all such funny people, and it was
well, listen,
joyful.
it's all documented in this wonderful book, these memoirs. Thatcher Stole My Trousers, and it's out tomorrow.
Yes,
brilliant, love it. A new BBC series also starts